The whole premise of Johnny Bravo really pushes the boundaries of what a kids show is. If you told me the basic premise of the show, I would assume it was something from Adult Swim aimed at, well, adults. Here's the first couple of sentences describing the premise from Wikipedia. The series centers on Johnny Bravo, a sunglasses-wearing, muscular, conceited narcissist, and dim-witted self-proclaimed womanizer. Episodes typically revolve around him trying to get a woman to go on a date with him, though his advances are usually rejected and result in the woman in question harming him in a comedic way due to his boorish manner. The show was entirely built around Johnny hitting on women, which neither seems like something that would be a hit with kids nor a hit with their parents when they actually paid attention to what was happening in the show. Despite this, it went on to be a success, running for 4 seasons and producing 65 episodes, and almost had a live-action theatrical film starring The Rock. While the premise managed to be a success, it didn't exactly lend itself to video games. It received just a single video game that was a blend of a dating show and minigame collection, released several years after the show had concluded. It's a bizarre game that truly needs to be seen to be believed, but what's even crazier is that in 2010, Johnny Bravo received another game, one that truly pushes the boundaries in classic Johnny fashion, exclusively for Java phones. Starting off in faithful fashion, Johnny spies a bunch of women and decides to stalk them to a creepy lab. Upon arrival, Johnny finds that they've all been taken hostage and it's up to him to free them. The setup is pretty weird, but once the opening cutscene is out of the way, you find yourself dropped into a stock standard old school adventure game. Anybody familiar with the genre will know it's all about solving increasingly obtuse puzzles. Generally, these puzzles are solved by exploring the world, picking up various items that seem completely random, and then using them to solve a myriad of puzzles. It's a bit of a joke these days, but the solutions to puzzles in old school adventure games can be ridiculous. You often have to combine 2 completely unrelated items that nobody would even think to put together. One of the biggest criticisms thrown at the genre is that it often devolves into just spamming every item at every puzzle you come across, making the puzzle solving a bit redundant. I've made my thoughts known previously on adventure games when I covered Adventure Time Finn and Jake Investigations, but thankfully Big Babe Adventure doesn't get too obtuse, at least initially. You travel from room to room in this laboratory, gathering up items that seem useless at the time but will no doubt come into play later on, passing by countless puzzles that you'll need to backtrack to because you don't currently have the solution. I was kind of enjoying the flow of the game at first. Puzzles made sense and I wasn't ever really getting stuck on one puzzle for ages. It was operating the way my ideal adventure game should operate. But as you progress deeper, the typical pitfalls of the genre rear their ugly head. These periods where you're just smashing your head against the wall trying to get past a puzzle are not fun. Obtuse solutions start becoming common, and another typical adventure game issue pops up too. One of my biggest gripes is that adventure games, with their insane amount of items, often come to the problem where multiple items could logically solve a puzzle. A cool and dynamic title in this genre would allow multiple solutions, kind of like how Scribblenauts gives the player a bunch of freedom to solve puzzles with their imagination. Instead, the standard option is to make the puzzles incredibly rigid with only one solution. This problem occurred pretty quickly in Big Babe Adventure. One of the first roadblocks is a spider blocking a door. Now, let's ignore the fact that this is a regular sized spider that Johnny could easily kill or even just gently brush aside. Let's pretend Johnny is deathly afraid of them. Soon after, you pick up a can of insect spray. Naturally, one would imagine you'd use this spray on the spider and that's the solution. Nope, the game hits you with a spider isn't an insect, the insect spray won't work on it. Okay, so technically if we're being scientific, yes, spiders are not classified as insects, but insect and bug spray does not care about this classification. Pick up any bug spray and it's almost guaranteed to spruik its ability to murder spiders. In fact, I'm pretty sure any aerosol spray can kill a spider. Literally, the first product I looked up that was called insect spray advertised killing spiders as a feature in its second bullet point. Tangent aside, this kind of pedantic, rigid structuring of the game is so frustrating. How would spraying a spider with insect spray not solve my problem here? This is just an inherent problem with the genre. If you aren't extremely selective with the types of puzzles you put in, and the types of items you include, you run into these issues that instantly turn me off. Once you puzzle solve your way through plenty of rooms, you'll eventually come across one of the captured babes. To free them, you'll generally need to do a literal puzzle. I'm talking jigsaws here. These are timed too, which actually made the sliding puzzle really difficult. I feel like adding a time limit was completely unnecessary. Once freed, the girls will proceed to beat the shit out of Johnny, which seems harsh, but then you remember that he's a creepy pervert who stalked them here, and it seems like a pretty fair action. Often adventure games are entirely puzzle based, but here you're quickly introduced to a bunch of hazards and enemies that can kill you. Johnny is powerless to fight back, which means you can only avoid them. This was quite frustrating to see. The movement controls are obviously pretty clunky considering we're on 2000s era mobiles, so asking players to quickly dodge around things is a bit much. The penalty for dying never seems too rough, you just get sent back to the door you entered, but when it's so easy to get hit, you'll quickly become annoyed by it. Big Babe Adventure has some interesting moments to keep things from being too basic and repetitive. At one point you come across the evil scientist running this creepy operation. He poisons you, and when you wake up you need to create a cure. To replicate Johnny being affected by the poison, the game flips your controls, so up is down, left is right, and so on. It's a nice change up and really fun way to reflect Johnny's current state, rather than just telling the player he's poisoned and having him control the same as usual. Even more interesting is how edgy this game is. I wasn't really joking when I said this game pushes boundaries. Along your journey you'll pick up alcohol as one of your items, there's plenty of references to smoking littered around the environment, and one of the girls you rescue seems to imply she's gay when Johnny attempts to hit on her. These are all things you just usually wouldn't see in a kids show, especially not back in 2010. I can only imagine Cartoon Network didn't have much oversight on this game. They probably didn't want to waste too much time on a Java mobile game, so the developers were free to get a little edgy. It never gets too crazy, but it's quite interesting to see, and it definitely kept me playing longer just to see what they'd pull out next. Graphically, I liked Big Babe Adventure. Environments look nice, Johnny and the rest of the show's characters are faithfully recreated. I don't have anything to complain about in this department. Similarly, the game soundtrack is really good. I mean, sure, there's literally one song in the game, but it's a good song. Naturally, this does get very repetitive quite quickly, but there's no denying the quality of that one song. And that's it for Johnny Bravo Big Babe Adventure. Adventure games are not really my cup of tea, so of course I was going to be a bit biased coming into this. It had its moments for me, and I'd say I prefer it to plenty of other adventure games I've sat through. While Big Babe Adventure wasn't a huge hit with me, I can see this being a fun mobile game for fans of the genre to chip away at. It does enough interesting and unique things to make it a little more engaging than just a regular off-the-shelf adventure game. With this episode of Mobile Minis in the book, I want to thank you all for watching. Next week I'll have my reviews of Tak and the Power of Juju for GBA and home consoles, and then the week following that will be my review of Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl. I was hoping to snag a review code for that and get a review live the day it's released, but that's looking very unlikely, so it'll be out a bit later. To make sure you catch all of my upcoming reviews, hit the subscribe button.